Hey there, goblins. Welcome to Goblin Salvage Rights. My name is Robert.
And I'm Erik.
And today we're talking about basic actions you and I definitely forgot about.
Yeah.
We basically went over a list of all the basic actions. Those are the actions you can do without skills and took another look at them. Reminded ourselves what they actually say.
There's a lot of them. There's like 19 or so of them.
And there's a lot of these little buggers that have tags and things I completely missed.
Yep.
I never
you can do
realized.
A and B and C, but only if B meets a certain criteria.
Or you can only do, or you can only use your land speed. You can't use any other speed.
Right.
And I'm like, I guess that makes sense, but I never knew it. So we're going to enlighten you on some of these basic actions. It seems like an unsexy topic, I think, but at the end of the day, I think people are going to find it really, really useful.
It's a return to the basics for me because I predominantly run. When I'm not playing in your game, I'm running everything else in my life. So I just take for granted I understand how some of these more basic elements work. And then I go back and reread them and go, oh boy, I got to go back to remedial math.
Yeah, it's back to basics, baby. Yep. Back to basics.
And there's value in this. So let's do it.
Before we jump into the topic, let's talk about the game we played.
We played
Edgewatch.
I didn't run a game. I ran that.
You ran that game.
I ran the hell out of that.
That was a good game.
Yeah. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
So why don't you take this one? What do you remember about
Eric
it?
Eric did this thing where he cold opened us. We started the game in the middle of a battle, and he's like, all right, roll for combat. I'm like, wait, where are we? You're in a cemetery. I'm like, oh, fuck, okay.
Spirocross Cemetery, a very specific, important, plot-centric
This is like
cemetery.
A scene for specifically one of the players. Like, this is an important place to one of the players in the game, Jacques. But also, it's kind of where my new character gets to meet the party in conflict. And we start in this big conflict between two warring factions of undead. And then, after one round of combat, we pause and then do backstory stuff. And we go back in time. And we follow the threads of each individual person's story that leads to them being at the
Earlier this week, you're walking down the street.
Honestly, dude, you pulled this off better than I was expecting.
That makes my heart happy because it's always nervous doing weird things like this.
The cutting back to the past and then having it lead up to the future is like,
I was trying to give you guys those Hansel and Gretel breadcrumbs back to the cemeteries. So like I used the big battle scene as a framing story. And then I spliced it with individual downtime activities. And what this is session 3 of downtime. And downtime. It sounds like a lot, but there was combat in it. There's no combat in downtime.
That's what I love.
But there was.
So we had round 1 of combat, and then we did someone's backstory, and then we came back round 2 of combat. We went and did someone's backstory round 3 of combat, and Robert was just like, I know exactly what I'm going to do on my turn. I know exactly what I'm going to do.
See, when I can nail you for those really weird exercises I do, I know I have the other 4 at the table. And that just makes me so happy when that happens.
Dude. They're sunk,
so, Jacques, Tyler, Nick, you, Ben, you were all just amazingly gracious with my weirdo thing I tried to do. So yeah, it was exciting for me to do because what I wanted to do was I wanted to have a clean break. What happened up to now in Edgewatch versus what's going to happen going forward. So I wanted to tie up one of the 19 or so plot threads that I left dangling for you guys. I tend to leave a couple of dozen threads, letting you guys tug on them one by one, and that tells me what to prepare for the next session.
Right.
But there were so many just left. And finally I said, screw it. All right, you guys, here's 19 of them that Tyler so graciously put together from her notes. And just rank vote them like 3, 4, or 5. And it turned out a number of your guys' overlap significantly. And that helped me to create this really cool, week-long narrative. So it was like round of combat. And then Robert's character. So a week ago, you're doing blah, 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 XYZ. We get to the end of that scene. Round 2 of combat. We get through that. I turn to the next character. So earlier today, blah, 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 blah. And in each one of these flashback scenes, I tried to seed reasons why you're even at the Spirocross Cemetery combat in the first place. So you guys start out going, what the hell happened? The cemetery exploded. We've got ghouls on either side,
Fighting
soccer jerseys, fighting each other. I'm in the middle. There's this new character here. Nobody knows what the hell's going on. And I've got some of you players asking me questions, trying to get more. No, don't ask.
I've got this bald weirdo halfling sneaking behind a fucking grave being like, hey, what the fuck is going on?
Right.
And then Tyler's
character, as a player don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm like, Tyler looks around and just like, get the fuck out of here. Who are you?
Right.
And get the fuck out of here.
Because there were a lot of civilians also at the cemetery. And the heroes, the Edgewatch, were trying to, get them somewhere safe so we could deal with the undead threat.
And then like 2 or 3 layers of combat later, I learned that my character has a dossier on all of the people in the party. And then I started using their names. I don't think anyone caught on, but I tried using their in-game names as Tenebris, but I don't think anyone picked up on that. But
there was just so much going on.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
For every 10 things anybody could pick up on, they might have nailed 5 or 6 or 2 if you're me. So yeah, it was an exciting game for me because we got to finish session 3 of downtime. Yeah. I can't get over that.
Yeah. We haven't even done Dragrid's funeral either yet.
So,
which is hilarious.
Coming up.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah.
No, but like you said,
we did a little bit with the send off because Dragrid, his body was escorted to the Silver Mines.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Out to the Hobgoblin Opraki Nation.
And that's effectively the end of that cycle of grief you were trying to do, right?
Yeah. I wanted to do an actual literal funeral for Dragrid where all the players got to go up and say a few words, but every time I try to do something like that, it just feels like it's dragging the tempo down so far and people get bored and wander. That's my read. I don't know if that's actually true. You guys can tell me. I know you're watching. So I was super excited about this last session because it's propelling me to do more for next session as opposed to, great, I finally got through this one. It was so much prep and 6 hours of game. Okay, I just need to take a breath. Crap, I got to get ready for the next session in 2 weeks. Now I'm like, hell yeah, I get to get ready for next session in 2 weeks. And it's because I've been working with these little tools and tricks I've been kind of making up along the way.
They've been propelling you forward.
Testing them on you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we can tell you goblins about those effects, the side effects of running the game.
And if you're that gung-ho about like how I framed this, I think that might be worth a short pod.
Absolutely. I mean, we've already done cold opens.
We did cold opens, yeah. And the idea of sort of like how to make downtime interesting instead of, you want to earn income? Roll dice to earn income.
Yeah.
All right, we're done with downtime, guys. You have gold in your pocket. Downtime drives me crazy because I don't know how to make it action-packed and keep people off of their phones long enough to get through downtime.
That makes sense.
And the fact that I did 3 sessions of it still boggles my mind because that's the opposite of what I naturally would want to do. Yeah, but at the same time, like
all of the players at our table are the least amount of people. Like they're not the kind of players that just want to roll dice to get
for sure,
and like to get the money, to get the more powerful magical item,
right?
Except me.
And that's cool. That makes it extra cool. Like this feedback you're giving me right now.
Yeah.
This is feedback I'm just getting right now.
Yeah.
So
I save it all for you goblins. Yeah. I save it all for you goblins. We don't talk about the game until right here.
Yeah, not really. We do tend to save it. Yeah. And this was a nice surprise. Thank you for that.
Awesome. Absolutely. So let's jump right into the topic then.
Perfect. What are we even here for?
Basic actions.
Basic actions.
We found a list of like a cheat sheet online that had a list of all the basic actions and a list of the other actions, like the skill actions. And Eric and I were looking at each other like, this is super useful. I wish I had this before. And we started looking at some of the details because they give like a short 1 sentence. And some of these details were not what I expected.
I'm playing a fighter in your Kingmaker game.
Yep.
And fighters are tactical, right? No surprise there. And when I reread some of these, it was almost like reading them for the first time, like seeing the tags and seeing what can be interrupted, what can't be interrupted, the sequence of things, leap, grab a ledge.
Especially someone who has attack of opportunity, it's super important to you.
Right, or reactive strike, as the kids are saying nowadays.
Sorry, reactive strike.
But yeah, it was really refreshing to go back to the basics and go, now that I understand this a little better, I can implement this as a player to make my combat's experience more interesting, and I can find ways to leverage it as a GM against you guys.
Absolutely.
To make your tactical experience more dynamic. And I'm going to be coming back to the word dynamic over and over again.
There's also a couple things in here where I realize the DM kind of needs to know how these work because you force these moments onto your players. And if you force a moment that they can't easily handle, it just becomes clumsy and you have to like look through the book and you're like, how does this work? And stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we've organized these, into 3 categories. One's everyone we think knows how to do. For a second tier of like, most people probably
They think they know that it exists. Maybe they know how it works. Yeah. Maybe they don't. And oftentimes we get to the table and we even forget they're an option.
Exactly. And then the third is like, excuse me, what?
Where'd that come from? Was that even in the book?
Avert gaze? Yeah. That's an action you can take?
Right? So I've been doing that as a free action.
Exactly. So, these are all things that we think that like everyone is going to find useful, even if you're like a master dungeon, Pathfinder player and all you do is eat, sleep, and breathe, this kind of stuff. I always find, especially in competitive games, going back to basics solidifies the core gameplay that makes it so much more fun.
Yeah, and it informs your advanced techniques that
absolutely
we just take for granted.
Exactly.
So yeah, so to reiterate, these are the basic actions. There are many other actions out there in the form of feats that you can buy into.
And skill actions.
And skill actions as well. So this is not an exhaustive list of every action in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And we'll get to those later, but this is basic stuff. If you're a fighter, if you're a wizard, if you're a sorcerer, anybody can do these actions.
Yeah, if you goblins like this episode, we will make more about the skill actions.
We're looking for bangers, you guys. Tell us which ones are bangers.
Only. Absolutely. So let's jump right into this.
Action number 1.
Players and GMs likely remember these actions at the table.
Yeah.
I think the first one is probably the most quintessential. Moving around on the beautiful hex grid.
Yep.
Stride.
The stride action.
What do you have to tell me about stride, Eric?
Well, stride is pretty cut and dry.
It is.
So there is a singular tag associated with this action, and I'm going to be using that word a lot because tags are important, you guys. I keep reading these Reddit threads where they're like, yeah, tags are kind of empty. You don't really, just don't pay attention to the stride. Pay attention to the tags. They're important. So for instance,
the whole game.
This one has the move. Wow, my eyes are getting terrible.
It has the move tag.
That means a reactive strike can be used against you if you use this stride wrong.
Yep.
So it's a one action. You stride and you move up to your speed.
Yep.
Whether that's a climb speed, a land speed, a swim speed, or fly speed, any kind of speed you have that's marked on your character sheet, you move up to that.
Okay.
And if you're going through like difficult terrain or anything like that, sure, that modifies it. If you get hit in the head partway through and your GM says, okay, you're stupid now, your movement's cut in half, whatever it is. Your stride, your one action stride will move you up to your speed, whatever that is.
Absolutely. So that's stride. The other quintessential thing we all know about, strike.
Yep.
Strike is you make an attack. Now, what I love about this game is the simplicity of it, the streamlined keywords that they have.
Yep.
We have talked about how they've tripped over themselves a couple places, and a lot of the keywords don't make any sense. But strike is such a very clear,
specific
terminology that we find everywhere.
Right.
Like strike is literally you make an attack. That is it.
Sure.
You roll your dice and you attack someone with a weapon. Period.
Someone or something.
It is not, you can replace this with something with the attack tag or blah, 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 blah. A strike is a strike.
A strike is a strike is a strike. Yeah.
And a strike is also, and the strike has the attack tag.
Yes, it does.
Other things have the attack tag,
right?
But not everything is a strike.
Right.
Some abilities will tell you to do thing X, Y, and Z, and then make a strike. A strike is always an attack dealing damage with a weapon. The reason I'm harping on this so much is because in first edition, you used to be able to replace attacks with combat maneuvers, tripping and stuff like that.
That was so long ago. Exactly. I remember that now.
And this was one of the biggest mind shifts I had to like force into my brain when I moved over to second edition, because I thought for the longest time, if it says you can make a strike and ability, I can replace that with a trip attempt, or I can replace that with, one of these cool, anything with the attack tag. That is not true.
Right.
A strike is a strike is a strike.
How long of playing this system did it take for us to finally like grok that and use it?
At least a year.
Yeah.
At least a year and a half.
It takes a while, you guys. So if you're feeling dumb because you're like, oh, wow, I've been doing it wrong all this time. Yes, we've been doing it wrong all this time.
Yeah. 100%.
It's like, that kind of game.
Yeah. This reminds me a lot of Warhammer in a lot of ways, because the editions change so often, every like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And the minutia changes between editions. So just the other night, I was teaching people. I teach people at my local Warhammer club how to play Warhammer. I'm like that guy. Surprise! I teach people how to play Pathfinder. I also teach them how to play other games. And there was a sequencing issue that came up. and I had to go to other people. I'm like, hey guys, this used to work like this in 9th edition. Does it work like this in 10th edition? And they're like,
it doesn't matter because we're already on 13th edition.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you guys change underwear as often as you change editions? It's a serious question.
Yeah, I'm a Florida boy. So half the time I'm not even wearing underwear.
Yeah, this is Commando edition.
Yeah, baby, right now.
So you mentioned that the single action strike, has the attack tag. What does the attack tag mean? Because it's going to affect a lot of other actions we can do.
So the attack tag, basically, for all intents and purposes, is what cares about map, multiple attack penalty.
Multiple attack penalty.
So whenever you have an action that includes the attack tag, any check you roll stacks on your multiple attack penalty. What's the multiple attack penalty? Well, it's very simple. The first time you attack, you get 0 multiple attack penalty. There's 0 negative. The second time you use any action with the attack tag, you get a -5 to that check.
That's any action with the attack tag. That doesn't mean strike. That means action.
Any action with the
attack tag. So read your tags.
And strike has the attack tag. That's why we're talking about it. Exactly. No. And then for the third and subsequent attacks, your multiple attack penalty goes to -10.
Yeah.
And if we think about like all of the times that we want to escape, which we'll get to later.
I was just about to go there.
We're not applying these multiple attack penalties, and they're really important to the balance of the game.
They are. And in my brain, the reason why this is kind of like juicy and fun is combat is interesting for me in Pathfinder 2nd edition because it's 3 action economy. And it's not just do 3 things. It's the order in which you do those 3 things that will have maximal effects or minimal effects. If you do the same thing in different orders, you might have this really optimized turn, or you might have just kind of a shitty little, oops, I can't even tie my own shoelaces kind of turn.
It's funny you brought that up. In the last episode, we had someone comment in the comments saying Erik was talking about, we were talking about flourish. And you were like, flourish means that you can't, you have to do it as your first action. And it was actually open.
So you're right.
They corrected you, and it was open. And these are the tags and the minutia that we're talking about. You know what I mean? Erik and I have been playing this game since we were like, since it came out. I beta tested the game. You know what I mean? So if anyone knows the game very well, it's he and I, and we still make mistakes.
Fucking up all the time.
So just keep that in mind. Like you're not alone. Games are complicated.
Slow and steady wins the race, as my grandmother used to say.
Complicated games are complicated.
She doesn't say that anymore because she's dead.
Oh.
Sorry, Mammy.
All right, so that's strike and the attack tag. Very important going forward.
Yeah, and just another little thing to add on to that. The strike action is one of those actions that has 4 degrees of success, right?
Yep.
So you can critically succeed, you can regular succeed. Maybe there's no failure or critical failure. But that's something to keep an eye on. So when you're looking at, I'm playing X class, what kind of actions do I have access to where I can achieve things like critical successes and not have to worry about things like critical failures and stuff like that? That's part of the tactical dynamism of entering into a combat state as a character. Moving on to Seek. Using your one's gonna be fun.
eyeballs if you have them.
Seek is a 1 action, basic action. It's got the concentrate and secret tag. Now, these secret tags have been screwing me up from day one.
We've practically never used them, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's to our detriment.
Absolutely.
I think the tension ramps up when I, as a GM, can just sort of like, just make those happen behind the screen. And then I can pop it out in a narrative sense. But I've been having other players roll Seek actions this entire time,
and I think
it
that's
turns into a
because
board game, and I hate it.
I also think it's because we want players to roll dice.
Yeah,
and
it's also a nice default, like roll a d20. I just bought myself 10 seconds to figure out what the next words coming out of my mouth are going to be, and with secret tags, that gets a little
exactly. But the opposite of that is, when you roll the dice for the player, they see you rolling a dice and they're like, what is that for?
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, yeah. So you guys continue on. Wait, what? Wait, what? And if we can
show me your screen.
Exactly. If we can do our best to create that tension without letting and allowing our players not to metagame, then I think it creates a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But
it brings people back to the table.
Exactly. But if you have a lot of metagaming players, these secret tags can be like a kind of a hard spot, I think, for a lot of players. A lot of tables.
Okay, all right. No, that's not a bad observation. So it seems to me that is a reasonable session 0 question is, hey guys, let's talk about secret tags. How much of my shit behind the screen are you comfortable with me keeping behind the screen? And what do you need to see out here on the table?
Because I'm one of those DMs, and this is like a huge controversy on its own. This is a debate we've had for, years now, is like, I'm one of those DMs that is happy lying to my players. I will lie through my teeth every day of the week. I will double the HP of my monsters if I think that you guys did too well and I think there needs to be more combat. I will half the HP if you guys did something super cool and I want it to end on that note. I am the master of your destiny, motherfuckers. You know what I mean? Like, I do not mind squeezing rules or like pushing things behind the screen. I love being behind the screen and pulling levers.
Is this a role-playing game or a trust fall exercise?
But there are players and DMs who always want to see the DM's dice.
Oh, the micromanagers. Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's fair to say that, because they do have a good point in that they want to be sure that they're playing a game and they're playing the game correctly. And they can only play the game correctly if they know all the rules are being followed behind and in front of the screen.
I would buy that. I do buy that with strangers, playing with strangers.
Right.
When you're playing with the table where you guys are familiar with each other and, hey, we're here. If you've got a fucking liar at the table, they don't need to be there.
Yeah.
And that's if I need to be watching my players' roles, then I feel like I'm doing something wrong in curating this experience with everybody here. With convention games, I totally get it. Yeah. With a brand new player where we're road testing them for a couple of sessions to see how they play and see if they integrate well with our established players, totally get it. But I haven't played one of those games in ages, so maybe I'm speaking just to my experience at this point.
We haven't really had to do that very much.
One of our patrons out there is, I think he just got back from a convention, so Evil Tendencies, tell us what your experience is down in the comments.
Yeah.
Do you like hidden roles, exposed roles?
Yeah, I've never DM'd at a convention. So I think
it's a whole different experience for me.
Yeah, I think I might want to do that. I think I might want to do that pretty soon. It would be really cool to go to a convention as GSR and like...
Someday we're going to show up at fucking Gen Con and we're going to be like...
Hey guys, we're running tables. Come play in our tables.
We're just as pretty in person.
Oh, God. I'm going to have to get absolutely shredded just to go to Gen Con. I'm going to post my stories.
8 abs.
Yeah, literally. I'm going to have to get 8 abs, starve myself for weeks.
Let's get back to the Seek action because it feels like it's been 10 minutes since we were there.
So my notes on this are, I realized that the Seek action is hyper specific.
A lot of times, and it's like 4 paragraphs.
Yeah, you have to focus on an area if you want to get discrete, like a cone or a 10-foot like burst area.
Like a templated area.
I don't like running it like this because it's too board gamey, and coming from me, that means a lot. That's saying a lot. But at the same time, I understand I want to search the room. Okay. What part of the room? Well, I want to search this 10-foot area of the room. And it's like, oh, okay.
See, that's funny because you are just a mathematical genius with the placement of your spells.
Yeah.
And you will count those fucking things regardless of what's going on in the scene. So you can get the maximal effect of your spells. But not so much for the Seek action, huh?
Because to me, Seek almost always falls out of combat. When you're seeking in combat, it's a very rare experience.
Interesting.
Unless there's something important going on.
So you see Seek action as more of like an exploration activity and less an encounter.
And that's my next note here is Seek action versus Seek activity. Because the Seek activity has different rules for it. And I so rarely am using Seek in combat. Maybe that's just the nature of our games we play.
See, have you ever seen those little packages of spell templates they sell at local game stores and stuff like that?
Yeah.
I have never once in all my years had the urge to purchase one for my wizard. I want one for the Seek action.
Really?
Here, take this bag of templates. Show me where you're seeking. That sounds fun to me.
Oh, really?
It kind of does.
Okay,
and, saying it might sound dumb, but I can totally see like, just show me where you're looking.
What's right here? Okay, well, there's it's a bookshelf. Okay, the books on it are of these varying kind of,
and it takes an action,
studies.
So you have to really want to know what's over in that section in the middle of combat. Oh, anyhow,
I think actually this is a good note to DMs. If you have a player like Erik at the table, design the combats for someone who wants to use Seek actions.
For me,
sorry. Put things in combat. Put like items they can interact with in combat that if they had seeked for them, then they could have massively interacted or impacted the combat at the moment.
Yeah.
Because if you let people just seek for stuff out of combat, it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah, and seeking is also a way to like find things that are hidden that might be relevant to the hazard you're in the middle of. For instance, hazards are a really good example of where the seek action is really important because when you're running a hazard, I feel personally, and I'm not saying I'm good at this. This is something I'm very much working on since we did the hazard video. How to let my players not know whether they're in a initiative-based combat or an initiative-based hazard. I don't like them knowing the difference between the two. And yet, how you interact as a player with a hazard is mechanistically different from how you interact with, beating goblins over the head in combat. And that's a tough needle for me to thread. But this seek action feels like it would be a lot more useful and fun in a hazard type situation. So that's a thing. But what about like hidden people on the battlefield? You seek for them?
Exactly. That's the one time when opponents are hiding from you.
Yeah, somebody casts invisibility or they're behind a a shrub that's 1 inch shorter than they are.
Yep, they're hiding and they need to be found. There's all these different statuses for unobserved versus hidden versus
that's
stuff like that.
More headache than I'm comfortable doing in the combats that I run.
Yeah.
And I totally understand people who need to have that.
And that's probably why I haven't interacted very much with it as a player, because I'm pretty playing a lot of your games.
Yeah. And we don't do like super stealth heavy games also.
Yeah.
So at least not an Edgewatch.
Definitely
which
not.
is kind of dumb.
That is kind of weird when you think about it. Yeah. You think the bad guys would be hiding from us.
Yeah. They do. And then they stop hiding on round 1.
So Eric, another secret check involves sense motive. Have you ever asked a player to roll sense motive?
0 times in my life.
Really? Because most of my players tell me they want to sense motive.
Yeah,
I want to sense motive. I
got to be careful here because I tend to get snarky.
Is he lying right now?
Right. It's the same thing is, I disbelieve. Yeah. I sense motive. I sense motive. I'm not knocking anybody specifically when I say this. So if you happen to be in the Edgewatch or the Kingmaker game, keep doing this until the cows come home. That's fine. There's something about the idea of like, did I not roleplay that well to where they had to say, Eric, you did such a shitty job playing that character that I just need a mechanism to see if you're lying to me. I feel like I just got ripped right out of the scene, and it's a little, it hurts me. Because I feel like I failed in that moment.
He's talking at me, ladies and gentlemen. He's goblins at home.
I wasn't, but since you're here,
yeah. So for me, it's like that. Like you acting is half of the fun. So it's like you act, and that's to me it should be like half of the result is how I as a player role play my character interacting with this person, and the other half of the result should be my dice.
Oh, that's really good feedback. Okay,
so
good.
I
like that.
And the dice inform how I role play with you. So if Dregrid, let's say, because Dregrid has a really low wisdom score, if Dregrid, perception, seek, sense motive, yeah. So if Dregrid was being lied to, I would want to roll my dice first, or you would actually, in this case, it has a secret tag. You would roll the dice, and you would kind of inform me that, hey, Dregrid's got no fucking idea that the wool is being pulled over his eyes.
See, this is the kind of thing I would need to know, like not at the table, but in prep, so I can prepare for those moments, because those are not intuitive moments for me.
I don't think they're just not intuitive. Yeah, especially with the secret rolls system.
And it's funny you mentioned that thing where you roll first, and that informs how you role play through the scene. Because I have a very specific 10-sided die that has a smiley face. It's got a confused face on one side. It's got an angry face on another side. It's got like I think there's like a sad face on the other side. And I used to do the same thing for my NPCs. Just like, what's the tenor of this encounter? Okay. Look, asshole.
He's had a bad day. Exactly. He had to sit in the
DMV
for
I'm just
hours.
A good guy having a bad day.
Absolutely. Hey, man, I'm a good guy having a bad day all the time. So sense motive is one of those weird things where it happens. It's another secret check. It happens behind the screen. And navigating sense motive is kind of weird, because if your player says, I want to sense motive, you as the DM take your dice and you roll it. and they got a 12, but the player doesn't know that. So you need to have all their stats and do the secret thing and be like,
which a lot of GMs don't do. You got enough behind your screen in terms of papers and cards and stat blocks. Having your players' important skill stats. I mean,
I will say though,
it's a lot.
This is one of those things where having a VTT can come in really handy, because the VTT allows you to do secret checks and secret rolls in a way that is just so intuitive. And nice. And fun to play instead of like a cumbersome to play. So
Slick D and a few others are busy stroking themselves right now.
Yeah, they're like they're like slowly but surely they're chipping away at me. They're chipping away at me. You know
I promise I'll jump on board the VTT train someday. That's just not this year.
So that's sense motive. It uses the perception check.
And it also has 4 degrees of success. It's another one of those. And I think that's important, because anytime you deal with 4 degrees of success, you're increasing the variability of the scene's outcome and interaction and what you can do within and around it. It makes a scene more dynamic when there's 4 degrees of success. It's not like succeed or fail. Okay, we got this binary game we're playing here where it's either yes or no. This is sort of like
so let me just power through these 4 varieties, because these are interesting differences, right? Critical success, you determine the creature's true intentions and get a solid idea of any mental magic affecting it. That mental magic part is interesting.
That's important.
Success, you can tell whether the creature is behaving normally, but you don't know its exact intentions or what magic might be affecting it. Failure, you detect what a deceptive creature wants you to believe. If they're not being deceptive, you believe they're behaving normally, which is that's an interesting reading of failure. In my mind, that's not what you'd expect from failure. And then critical failure, you get a false sense of the creature's intentions.
That's the lie to me, boss. Lie to me.
Exactly.
So failures in Pathfinder 2nd editions sometimes mean success. They're not as bad as you would expect them to be. Oh, and I failed. That's terrible.
Some successes on a DC check, you still get negative repercussions.
Exactly. Right. And that's something that once I realized that, I stopped being sort of like anxious about succeeding and failing things. So 4 degrees of success has made me a less anxious human being. Thank you, Paizo.
Wow. Look at you, Paizo, solving the world one mystery at a time.
Right. One action at a time.
One action at a time. All right. So let's keep moving on here. Stand. My only note for stand.
Where you were.
Stand is just an action. One action. Removes the prone condition.
Right.
Prone is a really important condition in the entirety of the game. The important thing here is that the stand action has 1 tag.
Move.
It's got the move trait. So that provokes reactionary strikes. See,
reactive strike.
Fuck. I still can't get it right. It's attack of opportunity. Fuck you. Fuck you, Wizards of the Coast. You Pinkerton bastards. I hate you for making me have to learn new words.
Say it with me now. Hey.
Hey. It's attack of opportunity. I hate everything. All right.
So yeah, it's got the move tag. So if you try to stand from a prone position,
a fighter
somebody sticks you.
Gets to hit you.
Be careful.
That's it. By level 6, a bunch of other marshals get to hit you too. So yeah, and this brings us to the reactionary strike kind of talk I wanted to kind of have here and broach at the beginning of the podcast, where reactionary strike is powerful. It's not a basic action. It's a very specific, particular action, but it affects so much of the game that it's important to talk about.
A reaction.
Yeah, it's a reaction that affects so much of the game. It's important to talk about. So reactionary strike, let's just read it. Attack of opportunity.
Bring it.
That's what it says on the Archives of Nethys. If that's what it says in AOO, then that's what it is.
Yeah, 99% of the time it's correct.
Exactly. Except for remastered right now. Oh man, this is a moment in time people will look back on in history. A creature within your reach uses the manipulate action or the move action. So AOO triggers off of manipulate or move action, makes a ranged attack, or leaves a square during a move action, which we already talked about. During a move action it's using. So when those conditions are in place, you get to use the reaction attack of opportunity.
Right.
You lash out at a foe that leaves an opening. Make a melee strike, keyword that we already talked about, against the triggering creature. If your attack is a critical hit and the trigger was a manipulate action, you disrupt that action, effectively meaning it doesn't happen anymore.
You shut it down.
This strike doesn't count towards your multiple attack penalty, and your multiple attack penalty doesn't apply to the strike.
Fighters rejoice.
Only when you critically hit does it stop the thing from happening.
Fighters rejoice.
Well, casters rejoice. Casters rejoice.
Okay.
In previous editions, if you got AOO'd while casting a spell, you had to do a concentrate trait to keep your spell, or concentrate reaction to keep your spell. Now it doesn't get disrupted until a critical success. And if you're playing a fighter, you get critical successes all the time.
Fighters rejoice.
Fighters rejoice. So this is like just an interesting interaction here, because we're going to be dealing with move actions or actions with the move trait.
Basic actions with the move trait. That was something I wanted to pin.
Exactly.
What you read, this is what I meant by 99% accurate. What they meant to say was a basic action with the move trait, a basic action with the manipulate trait.
Yeah.
And that's because there's different kinds of actions. I think it's worth dialing in there.
Absolutely.
And there's also the this attack of opportunity reaction has a trigger. It has conditions that need to be met before it's even legally able to be used.
Exactly.
You'll find that in a lot of reactions. You'll find that in some actions. I thought I saw some out there.
A lot of free actions, especially.
Free actions is pretty much where they live. So triggers are important because they define the conditions.
So let's get back to what started all of this. Stand. It's very simple. You stand up, removing the prone condition.
Yep.
And that has the move trait to it, the move tag, which means that it will provoke things like reactionary strike.
Right. And why this is cool is because tactically speaking, it's a 3-action economy.
Yep.
Are you going to stand as your first action and get that reactive strike? Are you going to stand as your second action or your third action? So teasing out a monster or another player's reactive strike so that the thing you actually wanted to do uninterrupted comes later is a fun part of tactical combat for me.
Absolutely.
That's all I had.
Yeah, totally. Another key thing about attack of opportunity, reactionary strike, is that it only disrupts manipulate traits. So you can't get disrupted from standing up.
Okay.
I just read it, so it's true. So if you get an AOO while standing up, even if they crit, you still stand up, right? It's only the manipulate traits that matter. Why is that important? Well, because the last one on the list for players and GMs, remember these actions at the table, the common basic actions that we all kind of know how they work is interact. And interact has the manipulate tag.
Trait.
Exactly.
Yeah,
trait.
Trait.
What are they even called? Traits or tags?
Trait tags?
Trades? I don't
Tag
fucking
traits?
care. All right. I know when I'm using advanced search on Archives of Nethys, it does matter.
Okay.
Because they're searching. I was so upset with
Did they used to be traits and now they're tags?
I honestly don't know. I can't tell you.
Okay.
Whatever they are, they're useful.
Boxy words.
They're useful. The box words. The boxy boys. Interact has the manipulate trait. And basically it says you get to interact with stuff. You can grab an unintended stored object, open a door, or produce the same, some other similar effect. You might have an attempt, a skill check to determine the success of this interact action. It's kind of one of those catch-all basic actions that allow you to interact literally with the world.
Yes.
But what's important here is, unlike standing up, a critically successful attack of opportunity, aka reactionary strike, aka fuck Pinkertons, is going to disrupt interact, but not disrupt your standing up.
Oh. Yeah. I before E except after C. I hate this shit. But it matters. It matters.
It matters.
Yeah. It's a flow chart.
It's a flow chart. And this is, again, one of those things where it's like, yeah.
And these are basic actions. If a basic action requires a flow chart, it's not a basic action. But I'm done.
Maybe the game isn't a basic action, Eric. The game is not a basic action. Are we playing in a heavy game, Eric?
Yeah. So to sum up, we feel that the typical Pathfinder 2nd Edition player and GM understands how strides, strikes, seeks, sense motive, stands, and interact actions work enough to keep the game rolling.
Absolutely.
We might trip over tags and like, you know, these little qualifiers, but for the most part, we can run a session and play a session and have a great time with these basic actions.
And you're probably always...
And it's always in our mind.
Yeah, you're always going to see players and DMs using this at the table.
Yeah, even if new players don't know these are called actions, basic actions, they're like, I want to hit it with my sword. Yeah, that's a strike.
It's a strike. Yeah.
I want to go over there. Okay, that's a move. That's a stride. So these are kind of things that are ingrained into our consciousness because we know how human bodies work.
So let's talk about the second category. These are the things I think advanced players who've been around the block for a while will definitely have in their back pocket. They'll know about, but newer players to the game or to the genre of game we're playing in general probably don't know or have at the tip of their hat at all times. They don't reach for these moments and solve problems with them. Yeah,
I feel like the first category we did was kind of like freshman college, where you're like, oh my God, this is all new information to me. But I've got it. It's familiar enough because I'm a freshman and they know how to teach freshmen. But this next bit, it almost feels like, okay, now that you guys know the basics, let's talk about the things that can change your tactical outcomes at the table if you do things in different orders and so on and so forth. And Robert loves this part, so I'm going to let him lead off with the step action.
Formerly known as 5 foot step.
5 foot step. What a sexy name, huh?
5 foot step. Oof. Yeah. Just really so many moments in my young adolescence. I think I'm going to take a 5 foot step and then another 5 foot step.
Not to be confused with a 6 foot lay. That's a very different action and it's not in this game.
Very different action. So a step action is it's a one action movement. It has the move trait.
That means I can stick you.
It allows you to move 5 feet, so 1 square. But it specifically states it does not trigger reactions.
That means I can't stick you.
It means you can't stick me.
Yeah, see what we did there?
This is your main tool to not provoke attacks of opportunity.
Yes.
In combat. And it used to be used all the time.
Yeah.
Because monsters and characters didn't have in first edition and previous editions of D&D, attack of opportunity was something everyone had at least one of. And then fighters could get feats that gave them even more attacks of opportunity every round. They could have like upwards of 6 or 7 attacks of opportunity in one round. It was awesome. It was Munchkin heaven. But now in this second edition era, you only have one reaction, which means you can only make one reactionary strike every turn. And that means the 5 foot step is way less powerful.
This is
than what it used to be. Yep. Simply because the attack of opportunity is not as ubiquitous as it used to be, which means that step
it way down.
Is not as important as it used to be. And that leads me to the conclusion that a lot of players who aren't used to TTRPGs especially, they're not going to know that step exists maybe because it's not a tool that they've actually had to use. It's not a muscle they've had to flex.
We didn't used to have 3 action economy. Exactly. So now that we do, like before you had what was it, like a long action and a short action? Or it's been so long since I played first edition. What do they call them?
You have a move, standard, and swift action.
Standard and full round action and swift action.
Move, standard, and swift. And you can combine a move and a standard to create a full round action.
Look at this guy. He's got a mind like a steel trap. So, this is also why I like to use the actual, like words that mean things. So this isn't a move action. These aren't move actions. These are actions with the move trait because step is very different from stride.
Absolutely.
And it has very different end results and it will save your ass.
Yeah. If you know that an opponent, let's say you know that this guy has attack of opportunity and he only has 5 foot reach. If I take 1 5 foot step away from him, no, he's the bad guy.
Keep him there?
Yeah, keep him there.
He's a good guy. He's a good boy.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. If I take 1 5 foot step away, then now I'm outside of the range of that opponent. And now I can move freely. So I can use one action to step away, another action to stride. And now that I'm out of the attack range of my opponent, I won't provoke any attacks of opportunity, aka reactionary strikes.
Yep.
However, if my opponent is a large creature like this one right here, or a huge creature, a 3x3, they may have a reach of 10 feet or 15 feet. If they have a range of 10 feet, that means I have to use one step action to step 5 feet away from them, and then another step action to move 5 feet away from them. And then on my third action, I can stride away from them without impunity. These are the tactical nuances that the 3-action economy gives us.
Yeah.
And I know we're talking a lot about the 5-foot step and how basic it is.
It's important.
Denying your opponent's actions is literally how you win combats.
Yeah. And the other thing that we haven't brought up yet is if you, let's just assume this guy can only attack 5 feet. Let's say he's a medium creature. If you take that 5-foot step, this guy has to use one of his actions to close the gap.
Exactly.
And strike. You just siphoned off 33% of its
You traded one of your actions for one of their actions.
And you've got 3 other buddies who are on deck ready to take their actions. So 5-foot step it's not just a way to individually ensure maximal success, but it's a way to, on your turn, affect everybody else's turn throughout the combat.
Absolutely.
And it just makes it juicy and delicious, and it gives other people things to kind of chew on while they're watching you do your thing. It didn't used to be this way.
It did not used to be this way. It used to be a lot more siloed in our individual interaction with the game.
Yeah.
All right. Next
I
up
like it.
is raise a shield. This is one of those coming to Pathfinder 2nd edition moments. They don't spell it out for you in the core rule book. Let children step up to my fire and let me tell you about the days of old. In ye elden days,
Cue music.
Wizards couldn't hold shields. They weren't allowed. No, sorcerer. No shield for you. Druids? Sure, for some reason. Clerics? I guess. But
unless they were metal.
Yes, unless they were metal shields. It had to be wooden shields.
God forbid.
But wizards and other little nerds, weak-limbed nerds, couldn't hold shields. They couldn't raise any shields.
They're so heavy.
They would have to be trained in shields.
So dumb. So dumb.
It took me so long, like literally when I picked up the beta for Pathfinder 2nd edition, I literally spent hours searching for shield proficiency.
Right. Wasn't there.
It wasn't there. I went on the boards and I was like, hey, developers, you forgot about shield proficiency.
Nope.
I don't see it anywhere. And they were like, yeah, so this is a big departure. We understand why you're looking for it.
Yeah,
and you have to
everyone else
understand
is too.
why it's not there. So this is a big deal for grognards like me who've been playing other older editions of this game.
The requirement isn't you need to be proficient in a shield. The requirement is you are wielding a shield.
Yep.
If you're a shitty little 6-year-old newspaper flinger, carry a buckler, man.
Yeah, everyone can carry a shield and everyone can raise a shield. What that does is it gives you a +1 or 2 AC circumstance bonus to your AC.
And every 1 or 2 counts. It counts. It counts. It counts.
It does.
Yeah.
If you don't think that's true, go check our 3 major 3 pillars of the game.
Yeah.
It's one of our most popular videos on the channel. That will explain on the second section, I think, exactly why
1s and 2s
matter. Yeah, it's important.
So yeah, just to kind of like push this a little bit further into the why do I care? Raising a shield is a single action.
Yep.
So it used to be you needed to be proficient in it to do the thing.
Yep.
I feel
and you would
like
always get the
kept
bonus.
The flavor of that by allowing certain marshals to raise their shield, not as an action, but as a reaction, and
I
other
think,
ways to interact with shields.
Which is shield block. Which is a general feat you can get access to, but it's also something that a lot of marshals basically they gave shields to everyone, but they wanted to make marshals still feel cool.
Exactly. Right.
So they created this whole new way to interact with shields, which is basically like DR at level 1, which is badass.
Yeah. So fighters don't get to hang their head and drown and cry under their beer because they're not special shield people anymore. They are. You just got to build them that way. Exactly. You don't get the I'm proficient and I can do shit. You got to buy feats to make it happen.
The important thing here is every caster should either have the shield cantrip or they should have a buckler on their arm.
So this brings me to...
Because it has the free arm trait.
The meta of the game is amusing as hell to me because I do all of this in mind movies.
Yeah.
And there was a time when you couldn't be a gnome without a flick mace.
Yes.
There was a time you couldn't be A without a B. And there's some like ancestral versions of it too when you're getting feats out of certain heritages and ancestries, and it's like every one of these you find are going to have this because there were
a lot of humans raised by gnomes. I'll put it that way.
That's the other one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. For some reason, all these gnomes keep adopting these humans, these poor humans.
So at some point in the last 10 to 20 years of Galarian's lore, Every wizard started carrying a shield.
It's just happened.
Every fucking one of them.
Overnight.
No exceptions.
A lot of, after Tarbathon attacked Absalom, the wizards were like,
oh, we didn't have shields.
These shields really made the difference.
This buckler made
the difference between Tarbathon
that
killing
Radiant Siege would have gone a whole different way.
Mm-hmm.
So
getting
it's
back
just
to
amusing to me.
Getting back to the topic, raise a shield is a basic action. Everyone can take it.
Everyone should take it.
Everyone should take it. You can get at least a +1 circumstance bonus to your C.
As a GM and as a player, I forget about it all the time. That's why it's in the center list.
And one of my favorite things here, just not to harp on this too much, but
too late.
Players, really. Players forget about their third action all the time. They do actions 1, 2. They're like, oh wait, my map is -10. What do I do with this third action?
And then you either move or swing. That seems to be the default.
So raising the shield, getting that +1 or +2 bonus to AC is huge.
Yeah.
And a much better use of your time and action economy than attacking for a third time with -10 map.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So do me a favor, boys and girls, goblins out there, fucking grab a buckler.
Grab a buckler. Grab your friend's buckler.
All right. Can we talk? I know we just went on a giant diatribe, but next up is aid another.
I'm going to need some more rum.
And I just made a character
goddamn, this next one coming up
dedicated to aiding another so hard. I'm hoping it will actually break the game. So,
is this half rum or is this quarter rum?
It's 2 shots rum, which is like it's 102 proof.
All right.
So
this is Robert aiding another.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
So aid another is a little complicated for a basic action.
A little bit.
Aid another or aid is a reaction.
Mm-hmm. 0 tags.
0 tags. It's a reaction. And basically what it says is you have already prepared to help someone do something. Mm-hmm. And then when they go to make a check to do that thing, you use your reaction to give them a bonus.
And it's not just someone, it's an ally.
It's an ally.
So if you have some weird trickery where you want to help your opponent do something, you can't aid them.
Yeah, you cannot help them.
That is stupid.
I think it's hilarious.
I'm going to house roll the hell out of that.
I think it's hilarious. Okay, so the interesting part about this is you have to have already prepared to aid someone. Mm-hmm. And in the verbiage here, it specifically says that generally takes 1 action. So the way this works is you have to spend 1 action to prepare to aid someone in a way that is appropriate to you and your DM. Mm-hmm. And then you have to spend an additional reaction to actually do the aiding.
It says usually by using an action,
yes,
but not always.
Okay.
So how do you know when you're supposed to use an action to aid another and when you're not?
Does it make sense? Like, does it make sense to the DM and you from a narrative perspective? That's my question.
Yeah. And I mean, like wow, rum. My threshold for that is different from yours as a GM.
Absolutely.
So the things that make sense to me to say, you're going to need to use an action for that. You might say, no, this is like easy stuff.
Well, I think the minimum is always 1 action. Okay. But I think some DMs could call for 2 or 3 if they really wanted.
Yeah. I like that a lot because there's sort of like a trade-off you have to do. It's not like you get a free aid another so that we can get a +4 to everybody walking down the street. It's kind of like you really need to want to aid your ally.
Yes.
So it's going to cost you an action.
Yeah, it's going to cost you action and a reaction, which is really important.
And you're right. And it's almost like a 1.5 action thing.
Nah, I would say reactions are as powerful as actions. So that it actually costs you 2 of your 4 actions if you think about it.
Sure.
Like that.
Yeah, but they don't always trigger in a given round.
That's why having a lot of reactions is important.
Yeah.
That's why literally when building an efficient character, one of my first things I look for when I'm building a new character is how do I give this character a reaction as soon as possible?
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's wasted space.
You go from doing 3 things to doing 4 things every
Literally,
turn.
Action economy is how you win battles.
Yeah.
So let's get to the critical success conditions.
Did you do the requirements? I want to make sure we cover all that like top stuff. Trigger requirements.
You have to do an action to set up the reaction.
Right. And they have to be willing.
They have to be willing. And then when they do the thing, you use your reaction to aid them. You roll a dice and you do an appropriate check, an appropriate skill check to help them, or an attack or an appropriate skill check to help them in whatever they're trying to do.
And you have to be explicit when you're aiding another.
Absolutely.
Your GM looks you in the eyes and says, what are you doing to aid another? How are you using your action and reaction to do this? And if they say, I don't know, I just do it.
Yeah. The DC for this used to be 20 base. Just a hard 20 base.
Okay.
And then additional stuff.
Mhm.
If your DM finds it appropriate, if the aid is more difficult, adjust it up or down.
Yep.
But in Pathfinder Remastered, they significantly buffed the aid action.
Mhm.
They reduced the standard DC from 20 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know anything about critical successes at home, Gabos, you'll know that a 10 movement in difficulty is insane. It's huge in this game. Because I think what they found is people were underutilizing aid all the time. They didn't just see it as useful, which I understand because it's 2 of your 4 actions. So now it's a DC 10 base with modifiers up and down. On a critical failure, I'm leading up to the.
I'm here for it. I am here for it.
On a critical failure, your ally takes a -1 circumstance penalty to the triggering check.
Whoops.
So if you roll a 10 or worse, in the olden days, you give your friend a -1. Nowadays, you have to roll a 0 or worse, which is nigh impossible most of the time. On a success, so notice there's no failure. If it fails, just nothing happens.
You're right. Yep. There's 3 degrees of success.
On a success, you grant your ally a +1 circumstance bonus to the triggering check. And remember, this check could be an attack check.
Yeah.
And normally this is where we're using it, is on attacks.
Right. Strikes.
Right? On strikes. On a critical success, your ally gets a +2 circumstance bonus to the triggering check. That is big. If you're a master in the check you attempted, the bonus is +3. And if you are legendary, the bonus is +4. Goblins at Home, +4 is the biggest bonus you'll ever see for practically anything in the entire game. Why is this important? On its own, it's a very lackluster basic action. However, there are a lot of skills and abilities and feats that build on top of aid that in the light of it going from 20 to 10 have gone from mid to bonkers good.
Yeah.
Let me give a good example. My newest character, Tenebris R2 in our
R2?
game. He has there are 3 major feats that build them up. Feats or abilities that build them up to be a monster at aiding other people. The first one is an ability the psychic gets. There's a very similar ability the bard gets, where you spend 1 action and everyone within 30 feet is considered to be aided by you. So you're spending 1 action to not aid one person on one thing. You're spending 1 action to aid everyone around you, regardless of what they decide to do. That's huge.
Yeah, it is big.
That's huge. And these are class abilities, right? So these are abilities that are so important and rare. They're built into the very class. Or they're a feat that you can only get through interacting with that class. That's really the core of it, because a lot of times those abilities, the bard ability and the psychic ability, allow you to use 1 skill in place of a skill you would normally use to aid another. So normally, if I'm trying to attack this guy, you would make me do an attack check. You would make me do an attack check to help him attack that. But in the case of the bard or the psychic or other classes I'm forgetting, I can just use my bardic performance or my mind magic to give you superpowers that lets me aid you regardless of what the situation is. And in the case of the psychic, I can use my occult skill. And in the case of the bard, I can use my performance skill. This allows us to stack a bunch of buffs and all of our experience onto that 1 skill and make that 1 skill as good as possible. That way, when we roll to see if we're critically successful, we're almost always critically successful. Second part of the puzzle. Second part of the puzzle is a human feat, basically that gives you, I think it's called cooperative. It's a human feat that gives you +4 circumstance bonus to aiding another. So when you go to aid, you get a +4. And there are other versions of this feat that, like the halfling, gives you +2 to aid others, and you also get +2 when you're being aided. I'm playing a halfling. The whole reason Tenebris R2 is a halfling is to get the next feat I'm about to talk about. So this is the icing on the cake, right? Most people don't get legendary until level 13. It's way off in the far of the game, right? Most people don't get master until 7th, if I'm not mistaken, right? And if you don't have one of these abilities that allows you to always use one skill, chances are the action you use to aid another is not going to be one of your skills that you have master or legendary. But in this case, Tenebrous R2, my psychic, is always using occultism. They're always at the highest proficiency, which right now is master. And then there is a level 9 halfling feat that allows you to count these blocks as one lower. So if you were expert, you would be handing out a +3. And if you were master, you'd be handing out a +4.
Okay.
That stack of feats is what allows Tenebrous R2 at level 9 to aid another with a +25 bonus to its occult check and give a +4 circumstance bonus to one attack to any one of his allies within 30 feet with one action and a reaction every single round. That compiled with status bonuses to attack like heroism and stuff like that is creating a machine that's handing out +5, +6 to hit every single turn. Now it's only one attack. It's only one strike action.
Sure.
But
and you pick the second one.
You pick the first one. You pick the one that's most likely to crit, right? You want to stack everything you can.
I thought you would want to reduce the subsequent map penalties.
It depends on the player. If I'm buffing,
fighters are going to crit.
If I'm buffing a fighter, I'm not doing it on the first one. I'm doing it on the second.
Right.
If I'm buffing a rogue who's got mad sneak attack damage.
Sure.
I'm buffing the rogue so they get double damage on the crits. This is the Robert
character build hour right now.
You know what? You guys don't understand. I just went on a fucking 5-minute diatribe waxing poetic about my character. But the reason I love this is because this is one of the first times in all of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, my Munchkin brain got scratched super hard.
Cool. And it's also important to note that I'm not freaked out by this as your GM.
Yeah.
Because I can take the moderate encounters and make them severe.
Oh, stop.
No, it's not a threat. I'm just saying, like, for GMs out there who are like, my players know the game better than me as a GM. Why I don't feel like safe running games. Just up the difficulty level.
Make it harder.
And give them something, to rail against, something more challenging.
They're going to be happy for it. If they're a bunch of munchkins.
I think so, yeah.
They're going to be like, oh, yeah, he's finally giving us the hard combats.
Yeah, so like old game design is almost like whoever knows the game best wins.
Yeah.
But Pathfinder 2nd Edition gives compensatory mechanics for GMs and players.
Those players who are knocking out like moderate and severe encounters are getting extra experience points.
Sure.
And every munchkin likes to level fast.
Yeah. So I've heard.
All right. So that's the aid action.
Aid is just
not in a nutshell. That is the aid action in a very long explanation.
Yeah.
But it is a basic action. Anyone can aid another. If you're going up against an opponent that seems unkillable, they have a super high AC. Oftentimes it's better to focus on one striker and making it so they can hit as often as possible.
Sure.
So if you're going up against an opponent and they're like a big boss monster and they seem to have a super high AC for whatever reason and you just can't scratch them, you may want to focus your efforts on aiding another player.
Give up one of your actions to help another guy use their action more maximally effectively.
Exactly.
Makes total sense to me, and it doesn't threaten me because, again, I had that safety valve, that pressure release valve in the back of my mind. Okay, if you guys are just steamrolling all of my encounters, I know the math. I can just bump it up a level of difficulty or add more creatures or whatever.
So talk to me about escaping, Eric.
Escaping. All right.
Escape.
Escape. That's how the Spanish say it, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Or Portuguese, one of the two. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll tell me down below.
And the fish.
Escaping is a weird one for me because it has a tag called the attack tag.
But you're
not hitting anybody.
I don't think we've been playing
You're
it
not
this
clubbing.
way for very long.
It's not intuitive at all.
It's not intuitive.
We didn't.
Yeah.
Anyhow, as a one action thing, you can escape. It's got the attack tag. You attempt to escape from being grabbed, immobilized, or restrained. Those are the three conditions that you're escaping from.
Yep.
You pick a creature, object, spell effect, hazard, or other impediment imposing any of those conditions on you. You attempt your check using your unarmed attack modifier against the DC of the effect. There's a bunch of verbiage here.
You can also use acrobatics or athletics checks to break it a lot of times and stuff like that.
So you go through and you, God, there's so much text here. Escape is kind of a dense one, but at the end of the day, what happens is it has the attack tag, which means it's a part of your map.
Yep.
So if you like kick at someone, you're tied to a chair and you kick at someone, you can kick out at -0 for your attack. If you kick out again at -5 for your attack, and then you try to escape, you're escaping at -10.
But more importantly, in my mind, if you try to escape once, you escape at your full ability. You try to escape a second time, -5.
It's harder.
Third time,
And then
-10.
it's harder.
Because oftentimes grappling someone means that you've just like restrained them. Or restrained is actually its own tag. So using that word's kind of hard, but when you grapple someone, you impose a condition on them, right? And in previous editions of this game, it's been really easy to break out of that because you can just try at your highest ability. So really, you're just hoping that they waste actions, and oftentimes they get it on their first or second try.
Yeah.
In this case, there's diminishing, like because escape has the attack tag, that buffs the usability of all other things that grab or restrain opponents, because now we've made it harder to escape from those conditions.
It also creates some more variable play at the table. So it's not like I'm just going to keep doing the same fucking thing over and over until I get it right.
Exactly.
It's like, whoops, I messed up the first time. I'll try it again next round, but I got 2 different things I have to do.
You're not just rolling the same action over and over again to hope to get it.
That drives me crazy. I look for a secret door. Okay, you failed your check. I look for it again. Okay, you failed your check. I look for it again. Give me something different.
Exactly. My other note here is a critical success on an escape lets you move 5 feet.
Isn't that weird?
It's so weird.
I don't know what to think of that. And it's not a 5-foot step. So if you move, you'll still get that attack of that reactive strike done against you.
Is that true? I don't think that's true.
It's not a 5-foot step.
No, I don't think
it's just true. You move 5 feet.
Because the escape doesn't have the move tag. Escape doesn't have the move tag.
Right. It's not manipulate. It's not move.
Yep. And so it doesn't trigger AOs.
Is that an oversight? That feels strange to me.
Let me double check. Let's jump into.
That doesn't sound right to me. I see it.
I have a feeling that it may or may not be right. Let's jump into drop prone while I look it up, and we'll hike back.
Okay. Because that just seems wrong to me.
Yeah, I have something. There's a little tick in my head, in my brain.
It feels like more like a math thing and less of a verisimilitude thing.
Exactly.
Verisimilitude. Word's hard. So did you say we're moving on to drop prone?
Yep.
Okay, so drop prone is a simple one. It's one action. You drop prone, right? So duck and cover. It's got the move tag, so that reactive strike also applies here. You fall prone. I'm not going to tell you what prone is. You all know what it is. So when you are prone, the only move actions you can do are crawl and stand. So if there's another action with the move trait, you can't do it from a prone position.
This to me is really fascinating because like, think of all of the move actions there are. If you have a special action from your class, if it has the move trait, you cannot
can't do it.
Right.
There's no crawl strike.
There's no crawl strike. You cannot. So it's basically
there
like
should be.
The game favors standing up versus being flat on the ground.
100%. Yeah.
And in a lot of scenarios, I feel like that's kind of verisimilitude breaking in some ways, but I understand from a mechanical perspective why it has to be that way. So I'm looking at attack of opportunity again.
Yeah.
And
really,
you
sure you're looking at reactive strike?
It says attack of opportunity on Archives of Nethys.
That's first edition.
No,
those colors.
You and your colors. There are themes to Archives of Nethys.
There are?
Yes. You could have orcs on the background.
On my computer, that color means first edition.
Goblins at home. This is my sign. I'm going to make a whole short video on all of the different themes you can do in Archives of Nethys. Watch. That's going to become
a thing we need to see.
That's going to become our most popular video ever. Right. Robert showing the world that you can have themes on Archives of Nethys. No one's ever talked about it. You can literally have little orcs like in the background of all of your pages as like an homage to the orc license. I love it. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that critically escaping and moving 5 feet does not provoke an attack of opportunity or reactionary strike.
I think this is one of the things we're going to have to nail down because I can totally see this being an issue going forward.
Let me just text James Jacobs real quick.
You should do that
on my phone.
Or just like, James, I know you're there. Just like put it down in the comment.
We know you're watching, James. Oh my gosh. All right. So, we're talking about dropping prone.
Dropping prone, right.
To me, what's interesting about this is that it's just highlighting prone, which is a really interesting interaction that'll come up later when it comes to some other actions that we're going to talk about. But dropping prone gives you the prone condition, and it costs 1 action. Moving on, delay. Eric, you got delayed on hard in our last game of Edgewatch. You want to talk about delay?
It's almost like everybody learned the rule at the same time and started using it again and again, which was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, delay it's a weird cat with 2 really chunky paragraphs in it.
Absolutely.
So there's no tags on this one. Delay is a free action. And walk us through delay.
You effectively remove yourself from the turn order.
Mm-hmm.
And then you are allowed to reinsert yourself into the turn order after anyone who has just gone.
When you leave the turn order, there are things you are no longer permitted to do until you're reinserted back into the turn order. And that's the part I think we've been messing up.
I think we might have, yeah. So the two key takeaways here are when you delay and remove yourself from the turn order, you cannot take reactions.
Right.
That's super important.
Yeah, that hurts. If you're a champion,
if you're doing 8 another reactions, I fucked that up on our last game.
Yeah. That's such a big part of your build. Exactly. Then we got to keep an eye on that.
I got to keep an eye on it. The other thing is if you have any ongoing status effects from negative or positive, like when I say negative and positive, I mean like good or bad, not good or bad, effects that affect beneficial or detrimental effects. They happen immediately. So like, let's say there's an ability that says at the end of your next turn, you take D4 damage,
right? Poison damage or something.
Yeah. When you delay, you take that damage immediately.
Right then.
So it often behooves you to not delay, to give yourself opportunities for your friends to help you or remove that condition from you.
Sure. Yeah.
If that's important.
And if there's good conditions, and I don't have any examples here, you can't carry those with you later in the initiative turn order.
End immediately.
Yeah, you can't game that. And that's interesting. I'm not even sure how that would change our combats, but I can totally see some nerd out there just leveraging that, dragging the good effects to the back of the turn order.
Well, think of a bardic performance. You know, bardic performance lasts until the end of your next
there it is. That's the example.
End of your next, action. Well, or end of your next turn. Well, it's like, well, if I never have a turn, I have bardic performance all the time. You know what I mean? Like, no, those things end immediately. Period. Said and done.
Yeah. So I think the thing that's hyper important that you brought up, that, if you forget everything else about the delay action, if you add to the turn order, stop it with the reactions.
No reactions.
You're cheating if you're doing a reaction and you delayed.
Yep.
When you reinsert yourself back and say, okay, I'm ready to act. After that point, you can do reactions. So you do your 3-action economy, and you do your action economy, whatever's left, and then you can react after that point.
You cannot act and then delay. You can't take any actions and then delay. You have to just delay or not delay.
Right. So you your turn comes up, you delay, come out of the turn order.
Yep.
Player B goes, player C goes. You insert yourself back into the turn order. You take your action, whatever actions you have left, because delay action is a free action.
Yep.
You don't have to spend anything for it.
Nope.
It's the other.
It just happens.
It's the other one I'm thinking of.
Yep. We're thinking of ready.
I'm thinking of ready in action. Right. So
we'll
get back to the turn order. You use your 3-action economy, and then somebody else goes, and then you can use your reaction.
Exactly.
And that's why it's important.
Yeah. The useful part of delay is, let's say you and your friends have a bunch of cool, like bonuses that you want to stack on top of each other. You've got a combo you want to build. Delay is used to stack those people up in a way that is most beneficial. So let's say, the wizard who's going to buff. Gamey. Yeah. Well, the wizard who's going to buff everyone, he's about to cast the big buff spell, or the bard who's about to do bardic performance. Everyone can delay after him. He does his bardic performance. Then everyone inserts after him, and then they charge forward, which makes perfect sense.
It really does. And it changes, like when you change the order of operations in a combat, and then you go for like 4 or 5 rounds of combat, it feels more like a movie to me. It feels more dynamic. It feels like people are moving around and doing things, where like in the old days, pre-PF1, like D&D 2nd edition even, if you go second in a round, you're always going second
it was in very
round
rote.
Ad infinitum. And it just kind of, it felt wooden.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that's
delay.
Delay.
The next one is leap.
Leap was interesting to me. So leap is a single action. It's got the move tag on it. So watch your ass when you're doing it. You take a careful short jump. So what does that mean? You leap up to 10 feet horizontally if your speed is at least 15. Or 15 feet horizontally if your speed is at least 30 for you monks out there. Or elves.
Or elves.
You land in the space.
Or goblins.
Or goblins. You land in the space where your leap ends. So you can like clear gaps and that sort of thing.
So what this effectively says is if you're at least 15 feet speed, you can jump over a 5-foot gap without any checks. If you're at least 30 feet speed, you can jump over a 10-foot gap without any checks.
And the interesting thing for me when I read this was I go, oh, well, what if you're just 5 feet short? Can you leap over that gap and then grab an edge on the other side as a reaction? And then gain an extra 5 feet?
Probably could. I think you probably could.
I would argue yes. And I know sometimes the Archives of Nethys, the actual language is different from the language in the book.
Yeah.
It's not a copy paste. And sometimes it's a little more vague here and a little more discreet there. And it says here that it said like if you overshot, is it overshooting a distance?
No, I think what it is the reason why leaping 15 feet is important is because you always land on the last square. So you land on that last square, meaning that let's say there's square 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they're all in a row. You leap from square 1. You soar over squares 2 and 3, and then you land on square 4.
Okay. And then at the ledge is the next square over, you can grab an edge as a reaction.
I would say yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go with that. And if anybody knows otherwise, please let me know because this is important coming up for my game.
Running and jumping and then grabbing a ledge is the most cinematic shit in the world.
It really is.
But from a mechanical perspective, it is very sus. It is like, you better be good at grabbing edges.
Yeah, cool. And when you do, there goes your reaction for the round.
Exactly.
Yeah, you have to really want
that. We'll get to that
thing.
here in a second, actually.
Yeah.
So that's the end of our second tier, leap. These are the actions that we think you probably know, but may not have remembered, or maybe they're a little more advanced for you goblins at home.
Easy to forget, that kind of shit.
Easy to forget. Now, our third tier is the tier we think most people just don't remember or think about.
Yeah, and even if
I definitely didn't think or remember a lot of these.
Yeah, and I actually misread how some of these worked, and especially the last one. But if 0 players at your table know these, the GM should know these exist, 100%.
Absolutely.
And then teach your players and make your monsters use them.
So let's skip over ready.
Yeah, let's do that last.
And do grab an edge. Because this leads exactly into what we just talked about.
Yeah, it's a reaction. It's got the manipulate tag.
So you can get stabbed by AOs.
Stabbed by your buddy.
You can, if the AOO critically succeeds, they can disrupt your grab an edge.
Yeah. And then down you go.
Epic moment. You're jumping for the ledge, and then the bad guy swipes at your hands.
Nope.
And cuts off your hands, and then you fall into the abyss.
Right. And then you are at the end of the second Star Wars movie.
Yep. Or the end of the third.
The only second Star Wars movie that matters.
You're halfway through the third Batman movie where he breaks his back.
That's right. That happened.
Yeah. Huh. Anyway, I love Bane. He's one of my favorite characters. So anyway, grab an edge. It's a reaction, as you said. This is very tangential.
This is the one.
Yeah, this is very tangential to the athletic skill. We're not going to get into the athletic skills, but there's a bunch of great athletics feats that go into grabbing an edge.
So the leap thing that we just did, this is why I thought the way I did.
Gotcha.
So apparently this one has a trigger. You fall from or past an edge or handhold. And that's the argument against being able to leap and then grab an edge. It seems to imply like you go over an edge and you turn around and grab it. According to this verbiage, I want to compare it to the actual book.
In my mind, I'm thinking you're standing on a rock and then it breaks underneath you and you fall down.
Sure.
And you fall past an edge. And in my mind, you know, if you think about it, like
with the edge behind you rather than in front of you.
Well, the edge can be in front of you or behind you. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So like you jumping and then landing near an edge and grabbing the edge with a leap versus you standing at the edge of a cliff and it breaking and you falling down and grabbing the edge. To me, those are the same movements.
Edge can be in front of you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. That's the way I think
I'm happy with that because that just sounds so freaking awesome to me.
So anyway.
Your hands are not tied behind your back or otherwise restrained. You need to have hands. You guys.
Grab an edge with your teeth.
An edge with your teeth.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, that'd be amazing. Oh my gosh.
I want to build that goblin.
Yeah, my next.
It's like an armless goblin with big teeth.
Yep.
Massive overbite.
Give him a feat that you give him a feat that says he can do manipulate actions with his mouth.
Sure. Yeah, and he's an inventor too. Yeah. So he has a little spring-loaded teeth.
Hell yeah.
So when he grabs the edge, it goes bang, and he gets on top of the edge.
He refuses to invent himself prosthetic arms and instead invents better mouth manipulators.
And he gets the jump up for free.
Absolutely. That would be awesome.
If he's hanging onto an edge, he gets to jump up for free. Where the fuck were we? Okay.
Yeah. You're talking about grab an edge.
Yeah, so grab an edge. This is another one that has 3 degrees of success. There's no failure. It's just crit success, and critical failure. You grab the edge or handhold on a critical success, whether or not you have a hand free. Use your teeth. Typically by using a suitable held item to catch yourself, like catching a battle axe on a ledge, for example. You still take damage from the distance fallen. And that's the thing that I forget to do in my games. Like when people are grabbing an edge, failing, and then grabbing an edge further down, damage is supposed to occur.
Yep.
I just space that kind of shit.
A critical success does reduce the distance damage.
As it should.
By 30 feet.
Yeah. So yay there. If you succeed, you have to have at least one hand free. You grab the edge or handhold, stopping your fall. You still take damage from the distance fallen so far.
But it reduces it by 20.
Yep. And that's important, especially when you're dealing with games that have like a Z axis, which is a pain in the ass on a grid.
Yep.
Because there's no Z here. And I'm too cheap to get those little clear blocks that go up. Thank you, Tyler, for purchasing those.
Yeah, those are pretty cool.
That was wonderful. What does a crit failure do? Because that sounds fun.
You continue to fall. And if you've fallen 20 or more feet before you use this reaction, you take 10 bludgeoning damage from the impact for every 20 feet fallen.
Yep.
Which is fucking hilarious.
And you have to make goofy sounds all the way down.
Absolutely. Sweet. So
why bludgeoning?
Because it's bludgeoning, dude. You're getting hit in the face by rocks.
If you fall in the elemental plane of metal and there's like jagged metal, slashing,
trust me, buddy.
Piercing,
as a guy who's been rock climbing for over 9 years, I have fallen off. I have failed.
You played the trump card.
I have failed my grab and edge check many times. Some might say rock climbing is just a series of grab and edge checks.
That just means that your buddy's an asshole who didn't aid another correctly.
He's doing his best, and even with his +2 circumstance bonus, I still failed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's an helpful asshole.
Absolutely.
Anything else on grab and edge?
No, I think we can move on. Yeah. Let's circle back.
Yeah. And grab and edge, it's not just like a cavern thing, jumping over chasms. Yeah. Like I like to play in metropolitan areas in my settings, and roof jumping and parkour is amazing. And if you have a monk at the table, give them reasons to grab an edge.
Absolutely.
It's fun and cinematic.
Absolutely. Next up is ready. This one is a little complicado. All right.
Which one?
Ready. We're skipping.
We're going back to ready.
We're going back to ready. Yeah. So ready is interesting. There's a couple caveats here. It's 2 actions that allow you to prepare to use a single action in the future. Now, the thing about ready is you have to use your reaction in order to activate it. So not only are you spending 2 actions on one turn, you then have to use your second action to do the action you prepared, if that makes any sense at all. The other thing is your turn ends immediately.
Yep.
After using the action, which is not something I realized until reading this.
Yep. You do something first and then you do a ready action.
Because if not, you've just wasted an action.
And that sucks. Don't waste your actions.
Don't waste your actions. Remember, kids, actions are where combats are won. All right? Okay. So you use the single action that you prepared as a reaction. Multiple attack penalty applies to this reaction. This is important because in the game, when you do a reaction that requires the attack trait, let's say attack of opportunity or something like that, your multiple attack penalty does not apply to it normally. However, in the case of this, the ready action, when you ready an action, your multiple attack penalty does apply to your reaction that you do later on in the game. Very, very important to keep in mind because remember, you're spending 2 actions and then the reaction.
Yeah.
So very important. You can't do this with a free action that already has a trigger, which is also super important.
Yeah, that was one that I tripped over myself.
Yeah. So if something already triggers off of something, you can't ready that free action.
Yeah, and
which makes
triggers
sense.
are typically free actions and reactions.
Exactly. So ready is super useful in many situations. Yeah. Let's say you're expecting a bad guy to come out of a doorway. Everyone stands back, gets their crossbows loaded, and they ready an attack with their crossbow to shoot whoever comes out of that door. Now, the other part of ready is you have to be hyper specific about the trigger that causes the action to happen.
Yep.
And I have played many times in the past with DMs who get kind of like, those tales of genies that would take your wish and twist it in a way that was evil. I've played with many DMs where they've twisted my trigger and made me shoot an ally or something like that because I didn't specify the trigger well enough. And well, I think that is like a kind of a gross way of abusing power in some ways. I also think it is important for us to very clearly define the trigger that's going to happen. And I remember we actually had a ready action happen in our last game. Tyler's character, Ted, readied an action. And we were blowing through combat, and I thought that they should have gotten their attack. And Tyler and you at the time seemed to not think that they should have gotten the attack.
Okay.
And I think that interaction could have been solved by having a more clearly defined trigger, because at the time I remember hearing Tyler just say something along the lines of, I'm going to ready an action to attack them when they're in range or something like that.
Okay.
And then they like grabbed them, and that changed the whole dynamic because they entered into their square. And in my like rules mind,
oh, did I rob Tyler of a trigger?
They should have gotten the trigger, but in your cinematic mind, I think that it didn't make any sense. And I think that's why you kind of blew through their trigger. And I think it made cinematic sense in Tyler's mind as well. Okay. I could be speaking for Tyler. If I am, correct me later.
Yeah.
But like,
my apologies if I robbed you of that one.
In that interaction, and the reason I was paying super close attention is not because I'm a pro or whatever. It's because I had a reaction. I had my fucking +4 ready and waiting to hand it to Tyler.
I got to keep an eye on that sort of thing.
But this is why I think triggers are really, really, it's really important for us to define what the trigger is exactly, or as exactly as we can, that makes sense within the confines of the context of the situation.
Right.
So yeah, that's my thing about.
Yeah, I think it's also important for another reason. It's just like a rule of cool kind of area I'm about to wade into. You're spending 2 actions to do a ready action. That's
and a reaction.
Lot. And
plus 2 actions and a reaction.
Yeah. So like being that genie that just corrupts the wish, this is a dickish example to do that with. Absolutely. Because that's a huge amount of currency the player is throwing on the table for something that might or might not happen. Yeah. And, I got to be better about that going forward. Yeah.
I'm not trying to harp on you. I think it was honestly just like the combat
there was a lot going on, and I wasn't keeping up with like the nuances of this particular text. So yeah, this one is it's a huge buy-in. If you're going to ready an action, you're attempting to predict the future, and you're putting money on the fact that the future is going to go a certain way. Yep. And it's a really big yay moment if that happens. So as a GM, I should have rewarded that. You have to be
conscious of that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's good. I like that a lot.
Oh yeah. So let's jump into the next one.
My last question here. So what happens if the trigger just doesn't happen and the turn is done? Action. That's it. You paid 2 actions and a reaction for nothing. So it's an
important note here is that you still can use other reactions. So if you ready an action,
sure,
and things change, and you see an opportunity to use your reaction, use your reaction.
Yeah,
I say this old Southern term all the time, but 1 in the hand is worth 2 in the bush.
Yep,
you know what I mean?
Is that a Southern term?
Is it? I don't know. I've never heard anyone use it.
My mom's from Oklahoma, so she used it all the time. She's Southern.
I've never heard anyone use it up here. But Northwesterners,
it's kind of archaic. I don't think
Northwesterners don't use sayings like that at all. Where I hear them all the time in the South.
Like, I think it's a generational thing.
Maybe, yeah, that could be it. That could be it. I was raised by like old boomers, so
as opposed to young boomers.
Yeah, as opposed to young boomers. Yeah, of course. So moving on to point out. Point out basically allows you for one action to, let's say someone exists in a certain spot. You point that thing out, they go from being undetected to hidden if you succeed a check. And that check is almost always a perception check, I believe.
Do perception check against the creature's stealth DC.
Yeah. And if you critically fail, you convince your friends they're somewhere else, which I think is fucking hilarious.
Yeah. So if you and I are duking it out on the grid here, and then I'm getting ready to throw a punch, and you go, "He's hidden over there. Can you stab me?"
You can.
Yeah.
Because
there's a manipulate tag.
Can you imagine you're in the fight with someone, you try pointing something out to someone else, and you get fucking decked? Oh my God.
That's exactly what it is.
That's hilarious.
So tags matter. It drives me crazy on these message boards when people say, "Yeah, don't worry about tags."
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
That's the point out. It's again, we're in niche territory here, but point out can be very, very useful, especially when you're trying to find that invisible opponent.
Yeah. And one thing that bothers me, and I'm not sure where I should fall on this, but it still bothers me. It has the auditory and visual tags.
Yep.
You can't point something out by smelling or tasting or touching. It's specifically to.
What do you mean?
So like if you smell a stink bomb, I mean, it's pretty strong from over there and it's not strong from over here. Why can't I point out that direction?
You can.
According to this, it has the auditory and visual tag.
The act of pointing it out has the auditory and visual tag. The act of seeking to find the thing that you're trying to point out does not.
But seeking is its own action.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Seeking is its own action. So
it doesn't.
Let's say there's a ghoul.
It reduces the difficulty for my buddy to seek it out, is what this does.
So let's say there's a ghoul hiding behind a wall, hiding behind a ledge. I can smell them because I've got some good smelling.
Yep.
I know that they're behind that ledge, and I can say, hey, Eric, behind that ledge, I'm pointing with my finger and using my auditory voice behind that ledge.
Right. And the orc punches you and you continue your sentence.
Exactly.
I'm talking.
Yeah, I'm talking. Excuse me. Then I go full Karen on this orc. Yeah. But yeah, so
do orcs have managers?
They better have managers. They're a well-organized society. Goblins. They have to have middle management. There you go. Just like all of us. So that's the point out action. I think it's pretty straightforward, but I never really knew it existed before now. But it makes sense that it does exist.
It does. And I think the important thing for this one is it takes an action. Yeah. You can't just do it for free.
It's also really useful for finding invisible or hidden enemies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without doing that last thing you just said, I think we have used it historically in both of our games as a free action.
I think
there's a guy over there in the bush. Okay, sure, that's a free action. You can speak. It's a free action. And we sort of like wrap this up with the idea of, I just want to say something real quick.
Yeah.
And it's not the same at all. It's its own thing with its own benefits. So yeah, that's worth bringing up.
Next up is Mount. This one's pretty straightforward.
That sounds sexy.
There's an animal companion or some sort
Doesn't sound sexy anymore.
Creature that you want to. It depends on what state you're from.
What game are you playing again? Not my game.
You try to mount the creature. You use one action. It has the move trait, provokes attacks of opportunity. Or dismount is you use the same action. I think this one's pretty straightforward. You got any notes about it that are interesting?
I'm sure my fucking paladin Nick has some notes on this one.
Yeah.
Let's see. You're adjacent to your creature, is at least one size larger than you, and is willing to be in your mount. You climb up, you get stuck by your orc buddy. You climb down, you get stuck by your orc buddy.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I don't see anything here that's really complicated.
The reason I put it in this category is just because this is one of those actions where I'm like, oh yeah, they had to make an action to make this mechanically make sense in combat. Like, oh yeah, of course this is a basic action because I never used it because I've never played someone who rode their animal companion. But I think anyone who has played a character that needs to do that has run into this action. And they're like, oh, duh, this needs to exist.
And it messes with your action economy as you're trying to order your little dude to do something. Which if you're playing like a ranger, giving your animal companion extra actions helps to balance that out.
Absolutely.
So yeah, mount is important. I've just never played one of those characters.
I haven't either. And you're not going to play one in...
I'm not, because I'm going to be the mount.
Exactly.
Ride me, baby.
Oh my God. Take that out of context. All right. Take cover.
Take cover is so fucking important, and we don't use it in our games. I don't use it when I'm a player.
I've literally never used it once.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Oh my god, Alex was using it all the time when he was playing the rogue in one of our games once upon a time.
Okay, so take cover. You use one action. If you're in cover, you get what is basically greater cover. That improves your AC bonus from cover from 2 to 4. It's a circumstance bonus to AC from 2 to 4.
Right.
However, you can also take cover when you're prone. Now, remember, when you're prone, you're flat-footed. So you normally have a -2 circumstance penalty,
right,
to hit to your AC from flat-footed. However, when you take cover, you get +4 circumstance bonus to your AC, which nets you a +2 circumstance bonus to AC, which is kind of cool. It's literally like duck and cover. It's literally like get to the floor, put your hands on your head, and now you're +2 harder to hit, which is kind of hilarious.
Yeah, and this is where I'm a little disappointed in my own self as a GM. This is one of those genies manipulating people's wishes, so corrupting the wishes kind of a thing. So according to the requirements in Take Cover, it literally says you're benefiting from cover, you are near a feature that allows you to take cover, or you are prone. Let's take that middle one. You're near a feature that allows you to take cover.
Right.
How many times have you run a combat and you just didn't bother to put all the stuff out there you can hide behind?
Yep.
And the players are like, well, what's there? All I see is this blank. There's no ink on this.
Empty field.
Right. Like, here's the combat, you guys. Okay. Can I take cover? Okay, there's a rock. How big's the rock? How big do you want it to be?
Big enough.
It just feels awkward.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's just bad. So
it's big enough.
I've come around finally to the idea of just let your players have it.
Okay, hear me out. You're a wizard. Okay,
I'm a wizard.
You've got your buckler.
I've got my buckler because I'm a wizard, and all wizards now have bucklers.
You use an action to go prone. Then you use your second action to take cover. And then you use your third action to raise a shield. You now have +3 circumstance bonus, +3 bonus to your AC. On your next turn, you're going to be casting spells from the ground. You're going to be laying on the ground with your buckler, and you're going to be like, pew, 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 pew.
Doesn't your shield like unraise on the following?
Oh, shit. Yeah, you cast a spell, and then you raise your shield again.
There it is. Yep.
Pew, 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 pew.
Yeah.
I think it's the new meta.
You have to keep taking cover, though, every round.
It's definitely the new meta.
Yeah. It doesn't keep carrying over from round to round to round to round to round, does it? This lasts until you move from your current space. Use an attack action, which is a spell.
No, not necessarily true. Not all spells have the attack trait.
No, you were doing pew, 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 so I was picturing magic missiles when you said
fine.
that. Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, casting shield isn't going to do it.
Okay.
So yeah, but long story short, there's room to play with here. Absolutely. Yeah. So there's cool, fun ways around it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But the take cover thing, it's spellcasters aside, I think in terms of like melee and rogues specifically, I don't want to cheat my rogues anymore out of their ability to take cover, get their ability to do their flat-footed damage and all that crap. So just fucking give it to them. So basic cover, yeah, if you want to spend one of your 3 actions, one of your 3 sacred actions, valuable actions to take cover, then you get the basic level of that. It's the greater cover.
Yeah.
That I need stuff on the table. I need to know what the battlefield looks like.
Yep.
Are we in a maze, an actual maze where you can take cover behind big walls? Then yeah, absolutely. Are you out on like an open battlefield with maybe a banner and a pennon and a dead horse? That's small cover. Just assume that's there.
And it's important to understand that you lose cover after you take an action. So if you're playing a cool rogue, you want to shoot your arrow and then take
get cover. Right. Yeah. Boost your AC at the end, so when the guys come after you, you're ready for it.
Yeah. As a rule of thumb, I generally play the game where if my third action is going to reduce the AC of my opponent, you do that first, like intimidate. And then if if my third action is offensive, you do it first.
Yeah.
And then if my third action is defensive, I do it last.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So for me, the important takeaway here is very much like raise a shield.
Yeah.
Anybody can take cover. You don't have to be a rogue to take cover. You don't have to be a sneaky class with, plus 47,000 in your stealth stat, your stealth score to take cover. You can just be a clumsy ass mage with 2 casts and an inability to tie his own shoes, and you could still go prone and take cover.
Absolutely. And get that.
I think it's a criminally underused action, and I think everybody forgets it. Absolutely. Or it's just, it feels so complicated. They don't want to deal with it, so they just don't.
Yep.
And it needs to be taking cover needs to be in every single session and every single table.
I think it's that powerful. Combat. I think it's that powerful.
It really is. Yeah.
Especially if you're playing a ranged character.
Yeah. It also buys you time if you're low on hit points and you're getting like the shit kicked out of you in combat, and the healer needs time to get to you.
Yep.
Get your armor class points up. Put your buckler over your head. Duck and take cover.
Put your buckler over your head.
You know, just do whatever you can to get your AC up long enough for your healer to come slap you on the ass and give you hit points.
I think the shield wall or whatever it's called, like the big fucking shield.
The tower shield.
The tower shield. I think there's actually feats in the game that allow you to use it as cover, so you can take cover behind it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Shield builds are a thing that I'm getting ready to jump into, but I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah. All right, cool. We got 2 more left.
Crawl.
This one is
move trait. I will stab you on the ground.
Yeah, as you crawl on the ground, you get stabbed, which is hilarious.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Basically, crawl is what you do to move while prone. So while you're prone, you can only crawl to move around, and that means you can only move 5 feet, regardless of your speed, which I find interesting. Let's say you're a monk and you can move like 30 feet. You can move 60 feet in a round, but you can still only crawl 5 feet at a time.
Sure. And you need to have at least 10 for your speed. So if you've been like reduced to less than that, you can't crawl at all.
Yeah. Yep.
My question to you is, how does that work with difficult terrain?
I want to say there's somewhere in the rules where if movement would reduce your movement below 5 feet,
you still get 5 feet.
You still get 5 feet.
Okay, so you can crawl through difficult terrain. If anybody knows otherwise, please let us know.
Please let us know in the comments. I would love to know this. Yeah.
But yeah, that's basically it. You move 5 feet by crawling, and you continue to stay prone. So you can crawl, stand.
Yep.
You can crawl, stand, stick, whatever.
All right, Eric. Last one. My favorite. The one I truly did not know existed at all. Drum roll, please.
Avert gaze, 1 action, no tags. You avert your gaze from danger. You get a +2 circumstance bonus to saves against visual abilities that require you to look at a creature or object, such as a Medusa's petrifying gaze. Your gaze remains averted until the start of your next turn. It takes an action to look away from danger.
To not look.
The presumption in this game is you are looking at danger until you state you aren't. And if you aren't, you have to pay a price. And that price is 1 action.
Absolutely.
I haven't been doing this.
No.
And I've had cockatrice in my game. I've had, various sight things in my game. And I have let my players just sort of be like, yeah, I approach it by looking at the ground and I head that way and I do 3 things. No, you do 2 things.
No, you do 2 things.
Going forward, you do 2 things.
Absolutely.
For the last 2.5 years of Edgewatch, you've been doing.
Absolutely. I mean, we literally had a fucking cockatrice or whatever in the hideout or whatever. I don't think you guys fought it,
but it was definitely there.
Yeah, it was there.
But in book 1, it was a big fucking deal, and you guys had to shrink wrap it in a rug or something.
Yeah.
And I totally botched that because I didn't know the rules.
Yeah. And that's it.
You've got some notes on this one.
Oh, yeah, it's true. +2 circumstance bonus to saves against visual abilities that require you to look at a creature or object. Pretty significant bonus. Honestly, +2 circumstance bonus is nothing to scoff at. Yeah. Truly in action. I've never had to use. Never used this once. Never even needed to. Never even thought I needed to. Yep. Yeah. And then, people just assume you can't look at a cockatrice. It's crazy.
Yeah. And that's it takes the metagaming out for me.
Absolutely.
So I'm happy with that.
All right, goblins. That is the basic actions.
Basic actions.
It literally took us almost 2 hours just to cover all of the basic actions.
Someday we're gonna do like an under 60-minute long video.
No. Not gonna.
It's never gonna happen.
It's never gonna happen. Let's be honest. What would we
cover?
Not
sorry.
I mean, our intros alone are like 20 minutes long. I mean, come on.
I don't know. My future aspirations, that should be pretty short.
Oh, if you want to make Eric's future aspirations come true, check out the Patreon.
Aspire me.
It's freaking sweet. You pay $5 a month and you get a bunch of custom homebrew content that Eric are cooking up month after month. We just came out with what the Goblin Salvage Rights even are. We have codified the Goblin Salvage Rights.
Codified.
We have a plan for 2024. We come out with custom content every single month.
We have a plan?
Freaking awesome. I'll link it down in
There's
the
a plan.
description below. The doobly doo. You also get access to a special channel on our Discord.
Special channel.
Where you get to hang out with all the other premium goblins.
Premium goblins. I'm the Echo guy. I like being the Echo guy.
Yeah. As well as, of course, getting special access to us at all times. You ask questions, we answer them immediately or as close to immediately as possible. You also legally get to shit on me in Discord. So that's nice.
That's really what it's all about.
That's the real bird.
Yeah. Shit on Robert.
Yeah. And we love to call out a new patron goblin every time we do a podcast episode. You haven't heard us do that in a little while because we haven't had a new patron. So break the cycle. Join the Patreon. It's only $5 a month. But I want you to, more than anything, keep it weird. Keep it weird, goblins. Thanks so much for joining us today. We will see you on the flippy flop.